A reading from the Book of Wisdom, chapter 17. Fifth antithesis, darkness and the pillar of fire. Great and impenetrable are your judgments, which is why uninstructed souls have gone astray. While the wicked supposed they had a holy nation in their power, they themselves lay prisoners in the dark, in the fetters of the long night, confined under their own roofs, banished from eternal providence. While they thought to remain unnoticed with their secret sins, curtained by dark forgetfulness, they were scattered in fearful dismay, terrified by apparitions. The hiding place sheltering them could not ward off their fear. Terrifying noises echoed round them, and gloomy, grim-faced spectres haunted them. No fire had power enough to give them light, nor could the brightly blazing stars illuminate that dreadful night. The only light for them was a great spontaneous blaze, a fearful sight to see. And in their terror, once that sight had vanished, they thought what they had seen more terrible than ever. Their magical illusions were powerless now, and their boasts of wisdom were ignominiously confounded. For those who promised to drive out fears and disorders from sick souls were now themselves sick with ludicrous fright, even when there was nothing frightful to scare them. The vermin creeping past and the hissing of reptiles filled them with panic. They died convulsed with fright, refusing to look at the air, which is everywhere and cannot be avoided. Wickedness is cowardly and condemns itself. Under pressure from conscience, it assumes the worst. Fear indeed is nothing but the abandonment of reason's help. The less you rely on this within yourself, the more alarming it is not to know the cause of your suffering. And they, while that night lasted, which was in fact quite powerless, and had issued from the depths of equally powerless Hades, all sleeping the same sleep, were being chased by monstrous spectres, now paralyzed by the fainting of their souls, for a sudden, unexpected terror had attacked them. And thus, whoever it might be that fell there, stayed clamped to the spot in this prison without bars. Whether he was plowman or shepherd, or somebody at work in the desert, he was still overtaken and suffered the inevitable fate, for all had been bound by the one chain of darkness. The soughing of the wind, the tuneful noise of birds in the spreading branches, the measured beat of water in its powerful course, the headlong din of rocks cascading down, the unseen course of bounding animals, the roaring of the most savage of wild beasts, the echo rebounding from the clefts in the mountains, all held them paralyzed with fear. For the whole world shone with the light of day, and unhindered went about its work. Over them alone there spread a heavy darkness, image of the darkness that would receive them. But heavier than the darkness was the burden they were to themselves. The word of the Lord. A reading from the Book of Wisdom, chapter 18. For your holy ones, however, there was a very great light. The Egyptians, who could hear them but not see them, called them fortunate because they had not suffered too. They thanked them for doing no injury in return for previous wrongs, and asked forgiveness for their past ill will. By contrast, you gave your people a pillar of blazing fire to guide them on their unknown journey, a mild sun for their ambitious journey. But those others deserved to be deprived of light and imprisoned in darkness, for they had kept in captivity your children, by whom the incorruptible light of the law was to be given to the world. Sixth antithesis: bereavement and deliverance. As they had resolved to kill the infants of the holy ones, and as of those exposed only one child had been saved, you punished them by carrying off their horde of children and by destroying them all in the wild water. That night had been known in advance to our ancestors, so that they might rejoice, secure in the knowledge of the oaths in which they had put their trust. Your people thus were waiting both for the rescue of the upright and for the ruin of the enemy. For by the very vengeance that you exacted on our adversaries, you glorified us by calling us to you. So the holy children of the good offered sacrifice in secret, and with one accord enacted this holy law, that the holy ones should share good things and dangers alike. Already they were chanting the hymns of their ancestors. In echo came the discordant cries of their enemies and the pitiful wails of people mourning for their children could be heard from far away. One and the same punishment had struck slave and master alike, and now commoner and king had the same sufferings to endure. Struck by the same death, all had innumerable dead. There were not enough living left to bury them, for at one stroke the flower of their offspring had perished. Those whose spells had made them completely incredulous, when faced with the destruction of their firstborn, acknowledged this people to be child of God. When peaceful silence enveloped all, and night had run the half of her swift course, down from the heavens, from the royal throne, leapt your all-powerful word like a stern warrior into the heart of the doomed land, carrying your unambiguous command like a sharp sword. It stood and filled the universe with death. Though standing on the earth, it touched the sky. Immediately, dreams and gruesome visions overwhelmed them with terror. Unexpected fears assailed them. Hurled down, half dead, one here, one there, each was able to say why they were dying, for the dreams that had troubled them had warned them beforehand, so that they should not perish without knowing why they were being afflicted. Experience of death, however, touched the upright too, and a great many were struck down in the desert. But the wrath did not long continue, for a blameless man hurried to their defense, wielding the weapons of his sacred office, prayer, and expiating incense. He confronted the anger and put an end to the plague, showing that he was your servant. He overcame the wrath not by physical strength, nor by force of arms, but by word. He prevailed over the avenger, by recalling the oaths made to the fathers and the covenants. Already the corpses lay piled in heaps when he interposed and beat back the wrath and cut off its approach to the living. For the whole world was on his flowing robe, the glorious names of the fathers engraved on the 4 rows of stones, and your majesty on the diadem on his head. To these the destroyer yielded. He was afraid of these. This one experience of wrath was enough. 7th antithesis, the crossing of the sea. The word of the Lord.